Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. When I did the video last week titled 5 decks nobody plays that I think are good, you guys really seem to like it, and I have more ideas for decks that I genuinely think are good that nobody really plays. Now, like I mentioned in the last video, good can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What I really mean by good here is I think that these decks can do something at like a rogue level. I think these decks have some good matchups against some of the meta decks. I think these decks do very unique things. And when you're looking at a deck that's powerful in the meta right now, you've got a few things to check off the checklist, right? You've got a strong leader that has a unique, powerful effect. You've got, a free play to the board. You've got the ability to keep a large hand size. These decks can do a lot of those things I'm talking about, and we'll go through that in the video. So if you guys are new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to support the channel, there are many links down in the description that will do so. Particularly today, guys, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards you see in today's video, be sure to use my link in the description to TCG Player. It really does help out the channel a lot. That being said, let's jump into the first deck. Firstly, we're talking about Green Ginyu from set 10. Now, if you guys have been following the channel since set 10 at least, you would know that I'm actually a really big advocate for Ginyu. I was talking about this deck back in set 10. I profiled it back then. And then when they showed Ginyu Force the Showstoppers, which Bandai gracefully allowed me to reveal to you guys for the first time, which was so cool, I talked about this deck some more. And I still think this deck can do some powerful things. So basically, what the leader does is he has a pretty easy time providing you with a +2. And what I mean by that is when he attacks, you get to look at the top card of your deck. If it's a green Ginyu Force with energy cost of 2, you get to play it to the field, and then you still get to draw a new card. So if you don't have that Ginyu Force, you still get your normal draw. You just have to like shuffle your deck and then draw a random card. But this deck and this strategy has so many ways to rearrange top of its deck that it should be relatively consistent that you both play a battle card, which we talked about just a second ago, free play ability, and you're drawing a card. So obviously most leaders that draw a card on their unawakened side, that's most leaders in the game at this point, they have a pretty good time keeping hand advantage, but while also putting free cards into your field, that's additional card advantage that you can almost look at as free hand advantage, because while those cards are in active mode, they're comboable, but they're also a free way to put pressure on the opponent, attack into a unison, attack into their battle cards. So that just translates into a lot of advantage for you as the game goes on. Ginyu is also an awakened draw 2 leader, helps with the hand size. On the backside, you have the same effect to attack, look at top card. If it's a Ginyu, you play it. Otherwise, you draw 1, but you still get the draw even if you don't hit a Ginyu Force. And then activate battle once per turn, pay a green, choose 1 green Ginyu Force in your battle area, and it gets plus 10,000 power. So that does help with some, pushing power as you're going for game. Admittedly, that effect is not always super live because, again, you are an untapped, a draw 2 leader rather than an untapped 2 leader, so you don't have like a ton of fluid energy. But Ginyu Force Showstopper came out in the expansion 14 set, and this card, in my opinion, just makes Ginyu even better. And I'm surprised to see that less people are experimenting with it with this card and another card I'll talk about in just a second. But anyways, quick read of Showstoppers. So permanent, this card gains Raccoon, Jace, Birder, and Guldo in all areas, auto once per turn. If your leader card is a green Ginyu Force card and you have 2 or more energy, when this card's attack deals damage to an opponent or removes a marker from an opponent's unison card, play up to 1 green Ginyu Force with energy cost of 2 from your deck other than copies of this card, then shuffle your deck. Okay, so what did we just talk about? Again, just a second ago, a couple minutes ago, we talked about free play ability. So leader swing, again, multiple ways to stack the top of your deck. Leader swing, play the Showstopper, attack your opponent's leader with Showstopper, or attack their unison. And now, mind you, if they've tapped out for a 2-drop unison, or if you've gone first and your opponent's on 1 energy, they're probably taking a 15k attack to the face. They're probably not going to have the means to defend that efficiently. So you swing with that, you either deal damage or remove a marker, and then you get to play a Ginyu Force from the deck. You can play Raccoon from the deck, which in this strategy, the 2-drop Raccoon says you can play another Ginyu Force from your hand. So for all that, on turn 2, you've played 3 free battle cards for 0 energy. They're all 15k attackers, so if you are being super aggressive and let's say your opponent's already awakened, you have the ability to continue to damage their leader, and you have the ability to rip markers off all of the 15k unisons. And like I said, with that, that's your leader swing will be 10k, but the 3 battle cards you produce there are all 15k. So if your opponent has played like a run-of-the-mill standard unison, with a 2-drop 15k unison that pluses 1 its own marker, that will clear the unison right then and there, which is pretty sick. But one of the cards that came out in Draft Box 6 actually that I think really bolsters this deck is Lord Slug Youth Regain. I talked about him when I talked about the showstoppers, but it's been a while, so I'll kind of recap. Lord Slug Youth Regain is a 6-drop 25k with double strike. He is also a successor for 1 green energy. Permanent, this card will be removed from your battle area. It sends the owner's warp instead, so that just pretty much says you can't play Cell Xeno in this strategy, but that's fine. You can play the Primal Carnage Ape Bardock SCR. You can even play the Spring Kai of Time coming out in set 12, which has pretty much already come out. So if you get your hands on that, you can play that very easily. Auto Bond 3, if your leader card is green when this card attacks, choose one. Choose up to one card in your opponent's hand and discard it, or choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode and KO it. We're not even here for all those effects, although in Ginyu, it's going to be very, very easy to get his Bond 3 active, but mainly what I just talked about in your turn 2 with showstoppers, bringing out a raccoon, bringing out another member of the Ginyu force, that gives you your successor 6 immediately for Lord Slug Youth Regained. And like I said before, that was all free play. You tapped 0 energy to do anything on turn 2 so far, so you can play this guy for 1 green energy by attributing all of the Ginyu force guys you just played for 0 energy. Swing with this guy for a 25k double strike. So like I said before, if you didn't already kill a Unison, this guy is definitely coming in for the final attack on the Unison. Otherwise though, I mean, just on that turn, you could have already put 4 attacks at a leader, putting them to 4 or maybe less life, and then you bring in this guy for another ginormous double strike. Your opponent's going to be in a really, really bad position on their potential 1 energy. So it's a really explosive thing the deck can do. I think Ginyu is a really cool strategy to mess around with. I'm definitely going to recommend it to you guys. Next up, we have Green Starter Frieza. Now, this one is also very strange to me that no one really plays around this anymore. I kind of get it because this came out in set 10, right? And in set 10, Zarbon Cosmic Elite was a really important card you needed for the strategy. It was a tournament pack basically for the Frieza archetype back then. And at release, it was very, very expensive. I believe it was about $50 per copy. I'm pretty sure since then it has dropped down quite a bit because Green's not seeing as much play, and neither is Zarbon Cosmic Unison. It's probably still in the $10, $20 ballpark. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it's still probably in that realm. But regardless, I mean, Frieza, the way they made these structure decks was they printed them at the beginning of set 10, which is the beginning of the Unison Warrior block, right? And they said, we are going to continue to either directly or indirectly support these strategies throughout the rest of the Unison Warrior block. And now we're into set 12, and we do see some cards that do work with this Frieza archetype. So it's kind of interesting to me how, you know, since Zarbon has dropped in price and more cards have come out that admittedly make Frieza a lot stronger, people aren't messing around with. I gotta say, I think this deck is probably the one that abuses Frieza Army Healing Pod the best. Now, back when this deck first came out, people were really wondering, you know, do I play Healing Pod? Is it worth it? You're adding 4 copies of an extra card to your deck that in a late game situation you can't combo with. It is a little bit rough, but I think it's kind of been decided that if you're going to play Frieza, at least Green Starter Frieza, you got to include Healing Pod. I mean, you have Dodoria that literally gets played from the drop area for free as long as your leader is this leader and you have a Unison in play. Then you have Zarbon Cosmic Elite, which also brings itself back from the drop area for 1 energy by pitching a card. So in that regard, it does seem like Healing Pod is probably one of your best turn 1 plays in the deck. I don't think it's really up for dispute anymore. And the leader is just generically good. I mean, on the backside, you get the ability to selectively rip cards out of your opponent's hand. I mean, that's always been a really strong effect in Dragon Ball. And 2 of the newer Unisons we've gotten in the game, Dark Broly in set 11 and Bio Broly in Draft Box 6, they both allow you to pitch cards to either draw 1 in the case of Bio Broly or make your opponent pitch 1 and lose 1 of their battle cards in the sense of Dark Broly. Dark Broly offers you also like another decent win condition with a big double strike body your opponent can't really interact with. Before this, the Green Frieza strategy only had a 2-drop Unison that they would be able to use in order to pitch the Dodoria and play it. But now you have a turn 1 option for that, as well as a turn 3 option that offers a lot of other powerful effects. So I think Green Frieza is something worth looking at. Really, really strong. At least to me, it seems like. Next up, we're talking about Golden Frieza. Now, admittedly, this deck has done a lot of surprising things in the past. This deck actually just won one of the more recent online webcam events. That was really cool. It's also done some things in the set 10 meta. But really, I think this deck is just one of those with a cult following that not many players actually play. But this is a set 1 leader that is so cool because for the rest of the game's existence, as long as they don't put in a leader that does the same thing, just more powerful, as long as they keep this leader kind of like in its own unique vacuum, as long as we get more Frieza Army support, this leader is always going to be playable, or at least something to be looked at as we get more Frieza Army support. Any 1-drops that get played, you can just sacrifice them, untap your energy, draw cards. It seems really solid in that regard. One more thing I want to talk about, SS Broly All Out Assault is it's got to be one of the strongest multicolor cards in the game. Yeah, I know multicolor hasn't been doing too much in the most recent sets. They did really, you know, throw a lot of strength in the way of monocolor decks. But what's really cool about the way that multicolor is kind of starting to evolve is that you don't actually have to charge multicolor energy. And Golden Frieza is one of the leaders that takes the most advantage of that, because you can just charge your green, your yellow, whatever you want turn one, play the corresponding one drop, sacrifice it for your advantages, and later on in the game you're going to have a green and yellow energy or some combination of that, you know, whether it's turn 3, 4, 5. Then you could arrive Broly by comboing your massive amount of one drops, or using super combos plus another card, or even the Doctor's Row super combo if you feel like it's advantageous to play that card. Broly comes down, taps an energy, taps a battle card, can KO things bigger than your opponent's energy cost. He is a really solid card for 2 energy and you know, barely costing you any advantage in a deck that generates a ton of advantage. I think this is a really cool thing to look at. Next up, I want to talk about Red Gogeta. I think this is another one kind of like Golden Frieza that, you know, this character is just so popular. I think he's always going to have kind of like his own cult following. And I really did dump on this leader a lot at the beginning of set 11. But then new cards have come out, new cards have been revealed. And I think this leader gets a lot of big power boosts from those cards. One of those things being Gogeta Time for Payback. This card gives the deck a lot more power because, one, you're able to recover from your Gogeta chain getting popped much more easily. He's a free play fusion that for 3 energy on your turn 4 or beyond can go back into any Gogeta that you really want. And he also plays around counterplays incredibly well. Let's say your opponent wants to counterplay this guy. Sure, he's a free fusion. I just replaced all the cards I used to fuse with him, so I don't really care if you pop him. Other than that, if your opponent, you know, wants to use like Godsling Technique Trunks in response to his activate main, you just choose to go into your 5-drop Gogeta Fusion of the Gods, which has Deflect, and then your opponent's Trunks has basically just done nothing. So this card really allows you to do a lot of work in terms of, you know, supporting the deck and helping recover. But likewise, I think Piccolo Jr., Descendant of the King, is an amazing unison for this strategy. I've talked about it in a few videos. I did put a deck profile out for this strategy with this unison if you want to check it out. I think it's from last week or the week before. But anyways, it's a 2-drop unison that you just, you know, +1 to draw one. Has Rejuvenate, which is great for this strategy. He wants to play a little bit more of a mid-rangey game. And then you have, you know, your 5-drop Gogeta play, which comes out on turn 3. So you play this on 2, Gogeta on 3, pump this guy full of markers, makes Rejuvenate all that much easier. So I think this is the best unison to play with this strategy. In my opinion, this is what really makes the deck a lot more interesting in my view. Finally, guys, I want to talk about Skillless, because Skillless, it's been one of those decks that's consistently been able to do well across many formats. Came out in set 6, was still topping events in set 10, which is still really cool. It kind of fell off a cliff and just like was never seen again after set 10, and I'm really surprised by that, because Vegeta Jr., Goku Jr., Saiyan Scions was a really powerful piece of support for the archetype, basically allowing you to spam your 1-drop 10Ks. That could be your 1-drop 10K Goku to combo off with your Bonds of Friendship Android 8 to pop your opponent's field. Also, you had ways to boost those 1-drop 10Ks to make them 15K attackers, attack into unisons, attack into leaders, things of that nature. But really, with Draft Block 6, we got some excellent skill support. We got Chilled, Greatest Pirate in the Cosmos. Basically, when he deals damage or removes a marker from a unison, you pay a blue, you get to play a 3-drop 30K from your deck, and you play him for free by pitching a Skillless, which you should always have in your hand as a Skillless Goku deck. And then Nimbus Master really allows you to play more of a mid-rangey game that Skillless generally wants to play, because you combo for 10K, you defend, and then you produce a 2-drop 20K Skillless out onto your field. He also can be played for 1 by warping a Skillless from your drop area. So these cards just are excellent pieces of Skillless support that I'm really surprised no one's doing anything with in terms of Bonds of Friendship Goku in this current meta environment. Maybe that'll change in the future, who knows. But anyways, guys, if you like this video, I do want to know in the comments below what you thought. Maybe leave a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below, what decks are you playing that you think no one else plays that are generally good? With that being said, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.